Good Sunday evening, everybody. And you thought our last show was last week. And here we are, 1 week again, and we are back. I am your host, Chris, and joined to my virtual above me this time is Rick. Rick, say hi to the folks.
Hey, folks. See, just when you thought you were rid of us, we're back, the
We're
deadly duo.
back.
So here we are.
Yeah. How about that? So we are with a very special show tonight. We are with this is a show having to do with the backer kit, Grimtooth's old school traps. Unfortunately, the old troll himself is still recovering from his food coma from his turkey day, and I'm sure he had a heck of a turkey day. And I hope everybody out there had a
Yeah.
wonderful turkey day as well. So he will not be joining us. So it's just going to be Rick and I, and we are doing a charts and graphs show. If you guys don't know what this is all about, during our Dungeon Denizens Kickstarter, we created this huge spreadsheet, and we had a lot of data that we could show off in graph and chart format. So we figured, hey, we should just do a show. Not an original idea. There is a YouTuber by the name of Dan Murrell who is a film critic and he breaks down the box office actually every week, and he does a show called Charts with Dan. I'm stealing that format from him blatantly, but I am a subscriber. I like his videos, and I watch religiously every week. So
There you go.
so I feel like I'm somewhat allowed to do it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to actually break down some of the statistics on the 5e side, and you'll see what I mean by the 5e side versus the DCC side. 5e has lots more rules, and they like to put things in boxes. And us scientists like it when things are in boxes, so we can actually do it better. So a couple of quick announcements to the show. First of all, if you have not checked out our backer kit crowdfunding for OAR, yes, Original Adventures Reincarnated number 8, Grimtooth's Old School Traps, please check it out on Backkicker right now. We are in the 48-hour window. This is actually really exciting. The 48-hour window happened an hour ago. So there's actually lots of activity right now. And currently we are sitting at the 5th most backed Goodman Games campaign, a crowdfunding campaign of all of I think we've done close to 50 now, but at least in the mid 40s. So this is the fifth most backed one. So we are super excited about that. And hopefully you guys will check us out on this Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be doing a wrap party. And we're going to actually count down the last hour of the crowdfunding. And I do hear the Dark Master is going to be there. So you never know. There could be
Ooh.
some last second stretch goals, or there might be some kind of cool stuff happening there. We might have some guests. We don't really know. And why don't we know is because we haven't fully planned that show out yet. So we're working on it. We still have 2 days there. We still have 47 hours to plan that show out. We got plenty of time. So check us out there. One last announcement before we get to it, and I promise I'll let Rick talk. Later on this week, Friday the 1st of December through Sunday the 3rd of December, PAX Unplugged is happening in Philadelphia. It is the largest tabletop game convention in the Northeast. Goodman Games will be there. I will be there personally. Come check us out in booth number 2547. A few of us are going to be there. I hear rumor that the Dark Master is actually going to zoom in on his whatever he does to zoom in on, and he'll be there for a little while. And we're going to have a booth. We're going to have a lot of awesome products. We'll be talking to the fans. Come out and say us if you watch one of our shows. Come out and see us. I don't think I've convinced Rick to come this year, but one year I promise I will
Soon,
convince Rick
soon.
to come to PAX for the weekend, if for no other reason to make him work the booth and earn upkeep and everything. So, all right, I've blabbed enough. Rick, why don't you talk about traps or something for a minute?
Yeah, I'm psyched. I mean, when I found out we passed 3,000 backers, it's just awesome. People are picking it up on Backer Kit, which is beautiful. And who doesn't love a good trap?
Yeah.
I was an original purchaser of the books back in the day, so I have memories of this book going way back. So it's kind of nice,
Cool.
I didn't pick
Awesome.
up all the original books, but I picked up most of them.
There was like 6 or 7, I think, too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
I didn't have the very last couple, but
Mhm.
the first couple I remember very fondly. So
Awesome.
yeah, this definitely tickles my nostalgia funny bone and in a good way. So
Oh, Cool. So I see Dice Station Zebra is in the chat. Good evening to you
Hello.
as well. Assuming it's evening as you. So, all right. So, again, if you're not familiar with this kind of show, we're actually going to just show you a bunch of graphs and charts created via Excel. And we're going to talk about them. We're going to look at some of the interesting things about this project. Like I said, when we do these huge projects, that kind of have a lot of pieces. I put together a spreadsheet of all 630, I think it was 634 traps throughout all of the six books, six traps books. I put that huge spreadsheet together, and then we use that spreadsheet. We then just pull that spreadsheet apart after we put it all together, to actually work on our project. And for this, we pulled traps from the first two books. So we have a hundred, and it's funny actually. We have 150 traps, but you're going to see that our numbers are not going to add up to 150 on this. Haha, funny story. We might as well kick it off here. We've actually, so again, this data's by no means final. First of all, one of the polls we're going to talk about that's on the crowdfunding site is still open actually. So I have data from this afternoon, so it's already out of date. Hopefully, it's still accurate. The winning. Secondly, this is again all for the 5e side of the project, because again, 5e, you'll see when we talk about some of these specific charts, it's very specific to the 5e side. And lastly, again, some of the numbers are going to add up to like 144 traps. That's because we've only actually converted 144 of the 150 traps yet. We still have 6 more traps to go. Plus, we have the stretch goal traps. We're not talking about those tonight. Plus, we have the bonus trap that we're including if you backed within the first, whatever it was, 72 hours or something. We're not talking about that one either. So take all this data with a grain of salt. I'm a scientist. I have to say this. So it's all going on. One more thing, and this is a direct request to the folks in the chat. My football team, the Baltimore Ravens, are actually kicking off in probably 5 minutes, playing the San Diego Chargers. If there's any scoring in that game, if folks could just drop that in the chat, I would greatly appreciate it. Yes, especially if it's like Baltimore Ravens scoring. So that would be awesome, because I can't have yet another window open on my computer. So
There you go.
multitasking. I was also telling the gang earlier today that my gaming group is still here down in the basement playing games without me now. We've been playing all afternoon, and they're like, we've got one more game in us, and I'm like, I had to check out. So they're playing Settlers of Catan right now in the basement. So and I'm missing it. So sad. All
Uh-huh.
right. I've rambled on enough. Let's show the first chart. So if we can
Let's
pull
do
up
it.
poll number 1, and hopefully that is displaying, because I can't see if it's not displaying or not. I'm just going to assume it's displaying. So this is, what is your favorite type of trap? So the first 3 charts we're going to show you are actually poll questions that we did on during the crowdfunding campaign. And this is the first one we did. And it was, what is your favorite kind of trap? And we have corridor traps, door traps, item traps, room traps, and object traps. Now, the first thing I got to talk about is items and objects. People are like, what's the difference? So an
I was
item
going to
trap is
ask
like,
myself.
yes, an item is like a sword or a boot or something like that. An object is something that's like a statue or something like that, something big that you can't like put in your pocket or whatever. It is kind of a weird thing, but we kind of classified the traps by all these different things. And again, some of the item traps are kind of more specific, like kind of cursed items and everything. So that's the difference. Oh, Dirty Dwarf 77, you have 47 hours to back this. You got to get on
Come
this
on, come
before
on.
it ends. So we got to try to hit some more stretch goals.
Yeah.
So that's what those two things are. So if you look at these numbers, this is already fascinating right out of the gate. What do you see, Rick? That's very interesting to you.
I see a couple near equalities there. I mean, we clearly have a duel, I think, between the quarter trap lovers and the room trap lovers. That's something that leaps out to me immediately.
Yes.
And then I don't know if people were confused like me or not, but the object and well, actually, no, the item is slightly outshining the object a little bit there. We've got a 3% margin on the items over the object. So assuming people know the difference, and I kind of figured it was what you described. I figured items were something you could put in your pocket or wear or carry, and objects maybe weren't. It'd be the easiest way to describe it. But yeah, look at those. Look at the room and look at the quarter.
Yeah. It's like if you do the rounding, they both come out to 30%. But
Yeah.
actually, I had to dive back into the back end of BackerKit and actually see the number of votes, and the number of votes actually were different. So
Yeah.
corridor trap wins it by a nose is what we call that. So
I was always a
uh,
sucker for a good corridor trap myself. So
I have to admit, if I had to pick, I would go corridor trap. I mean,
yeah.
because corridors are, in a room already, their hackles are up. They're already expecting something.
Yes.
But
Yep.
corridor is literally just to
Oh
get from
yeah.
one point to the other. And I remember when I did Crypt of the Devilich, I had a lot of fun. I needed to create a couple of corridors to hook rooms up, so I
Mm-hmm.
created them and I made them look like traps, but they were
Mm-hmm.
not. But I just made them
Nice.
look like, oh my God, I'm not going in that corridor. And it worked beautifully. I mean, I had people waste so much time and resources and detect
Mm-hmm.
magic spells and whatnot. So yeah, definitely a good corridor trap goes a long, long way.
It's so
Good job.
true too, because my group, which I had over this weekend too, it must be a gaming weekend.
It is. Well,
My
it's a holiday weekend.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's the thing, because I'm still foggy. I had the group over until like 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or whatever it was yesterday. Um, it's exactly as you said. When they go into a room, they get their hackles up, they're on red alert, but
yeah,
they love to just plunge on down the corridor. So I loves me a good corridor trap.
cool. So that was our first poll that we ran. And by the way, we had 364 people vote on that poll. So, which is
Good.
interesting. And,
Yeah.
and all right, this is the time to air some grievances here. We're getting close to Festivus. I'm going to air a grievance. So here we go. So this is funny. This is one of the awesome parts of Backer Kit is they let you actually run polls on their site, which is really cool. You can actually run polls before the campaign starts. So like you'd be like, hey, what color dice do you guys want? And trust me, that's coming. Maybe not the dice color thing specifically, but we will be doing polls before our other campaigns launch. But previously, when we did polls on our other campaigns, we had to use Google Sheets, and you had to have a Google email to
Mm.
do it. And not everybody complained, but lots of people complained, oh, I want to do your poll, but I'm not going to be watched by the man, and I don't have a Google thing, and they'd get upset about it. And we would have 800 people, fill out those things, and a bunch of people would complain too. So now we take that away and anybody can vote on this poll and we get 300 people. Really? 300 people out of 3,000 backers? Of course, we didn't have 3,000 backers back when this poll ran, but still. So anyway, take home point. Vote on those polls. Vote on
Yeah.
those polls.
I guess
All
people
right.
like a hurdle or something.
I'm off my soapbox right now and everything. By the way, quick shout out. Thanks to Grimtooth for letting us out of the locker tonight. Actually, I think
Yes,
I think
my
Elena had
wrists
something to do with that
are
too. So
not chapped for a moment. I'm out of the manacles. It feels
yeah,
stretching here in the
strangely
dungeon.
liberating.
Feels good, right? Now we can only see the sunlight, but that might be too much to ask for, I think.
So, okay, and I see I did the title of this one wrong. What is your favorite type of trap? This should say, what is your favorite pit type of trap? So we have a bunch of different options here. We have any pit that the PCs fall into. That's the blue. The purple, we have an open pit, plain bottom. I really don't even know why we got any votes for that one. Then we got poison. The gray one is poison spikes at the bottom, a classic. The green one
Classic.
is an ooze, slightly misspelled, or slime, also misspelled at the bottom. Next, we got oiled walls, and acid at the bottom. Probably
Interesting.
not used as much, but definitely classic. And then the last one, a boulder drops from above, just to like kind of top it all off and everything. So this one was not close. So yeah, I don't know if Grimtooth himself just kept voting and kept clicking, clicking, clicking. By the way, this one we had the most voters on this one. We had 454 votes on this one. So what jumps out at you on this one, except for the landslide win by any trap that a PC falls into?
I'm surprised that the slime outweighed the classics
Yeah.
spike. And I'm happy to see that even though it's a very small percentage at 5%, I'm happy to see the Wile E. Coyote option is not the last smallest
Yes.
option.
And if you
So,
guys are familiar with the old Grimtooth books, there's definitely some Wile E. Coyote stuff
oh
in there,
yeah.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah.
Recently I read the rules that, one of the creators of the cartoons had written for that like they had a list of rules for that cartoon. And one is, gravity will always be the coyote's enemy.
Yep.
And that yellow slice is definitely speaking to me in that fashion.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. That's
boulder
interesting.
drops from above.
Yeah, I think if I had to vote, I would probably go the ooze or slime at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's funny, back in the 80s, I probably never would have thought of that, to be honest
Hmm.
with you, or put the gelatinous cube in it and everything. I think that's the popular trope. But yeah, now it's like, wow, yeah, that's like a definite go-to. I've seen that done so
Hmm.
much. We did it in Crypt of the Devilish. But yeah, I mean, totally could see that happening. So yeah, it was interesting. I like to see the love that oiled walls and acid bottom. I don't think enough pits have oiled walls to make it harder to climb out. It's a simple thing, but you can almost get this kind of thing where they just keep messing up their die roll and keep falling back in, and
Yeah.
it probably gets old after a while, but definitely could be a Wile E. Coyote kind of deal there too. So cool. So that was poll number two. So now we're gonna go to poll number three is technically still open.
Hmm.
So if folks want to go over and try and change this, this is the results of the poll from this probably like noon today or 11 a.m. today. I forget exactly what time I actually went in and grabbed this before the whole gang showed up to game. This is interesting. So we asked which of these four traps would you like to see game stats for, and you can kind of see the pictures on there. And we do apologize for the quality of the pictures. We thought like we could do some different things with the pictures on Backer Kit, but apparently we couldn't. We actually were in contact with Backer Kit and asking them directly if we could make these pictures better. But anyway, that's our fault, not anybody else's fault. But so you got four little interesting options here. We got A, B, C, and D. And it's really interesting. Early on, when this poll first came out, C and D were neck and neck. I mean, they were
Hmm.
right within one or two votes for probably the for this poll's been open, I think, for 7 days. Probably the first 4 or 5 days they were pretty neck and neck. The last couple of days it really pulled away and
Mm.
C kind of took over. My first question to you, Rick, is which one of these do you like, A, B, C, or D? Which would you like to see game stats for?
That's a good question. I think I would actually lean toward D. Um,
Hmm,
if I had my druthers. Something about
interesting.
yeah,
Okay,
something
and
about D is capturing me a little bit.
okay, and this trap is actually called the various killers of paranoids, which is a very interesting thing. So as you can see, the theme of these four traps are if you're actually opening up the chest, you're safe. You're actually kind
Mhm.
of in the safe zone. This is the type of trap to try and get the characters that hang back and to say, while you
Mhm.
open up the trap, I'm just gonna go leave the room and make sure I'm safe. And it's really to kind of work on that. So my favorite is actually A. I for some reason maybe it's the Wile E. Coyote in me or something. Just A
Mhm.
just really sings to me, and I'm really disappointed that we only got 41 votes for that one. So if anybody can get on there and vote and try and get A up at least as a second place, that would be awesome, I think. But anyway, but yeah, C is interesting.
Yeah.
So you've got the doors. You open up when you open up the doors to the room, and the doors swing in. When you touch the chest or open up the chest, the doors actually, the corridor actually smushes in directly. So basically, it prevents you from escaping the room, essentially. And if you're in the corridor, you have to make a dex save and try and jump into the room with the chest. But most PCs are going to be like, I am not jumping into the danger. I'm jumping
Mhm.
out of the danger. So you give them the option to jump out. And then if they jump out, well, then you can see when that smushes in, it opens up the doors so that you've got a giant constrictor snake, and then you've actually got a Hezru demon on the other side. So they just waltz into the room, and then you basically you've split the party, and then they just wreck it.
So,
So yeah, so it's pretty awesome. I mean, I do like that trap a lot. And I do
mhm.
really like the whole theme of this trap being kind of, trying to nail the people who think that the wizards in that they're like, I'm just gonna stand
Mhm.
back a little bit and make sure that a fireball can't affect me.
One of the things I love about a lot of these traps is how they play off of expectations of the players and just like you said, common things that players do, whether it's hang back or they'll
Yeah.
open a chest and they'll stand a little bit to the side, that kind of thing where
Yes.
players have a certain way of like my players always do that. If they open a suspicious chest, they always and I've gotten to the point where now I'll have blocks falling from the ceiling around the chest. I'll have darts shooting out on all sides because my players are just too clever to stand right in front of a chest for me. So,
Oh,
and
no,
this
yeah.
book is very devious with that. A lot of these traps definitely play off of expectations.
Yeah, it's definitely I think somebody said it best. I think Steve Crompton said it best on his series, is basically the players are their own worst enemies here.
Yes.
Like the traps will kill you, but the actions of the players are really the ones that are doing most of the
Hmm.
damage. It's like basically they're facilitating the death and destruction, which is definitely true. I agree with that 100%. So interesting. So that poll I think closes sometime tomorrow. So folks really, if they haven't voted yet, you can go on and vote. If you click on the community tab, and in the community tab there'll be a little bar, and it'll kind of get polls. It'll bring you right to the poll if you click the poll tab underneath community. So all right, so now that's the poll questions that we had during the campaign. So let's kind of get into the
Nice.
stats now, kind of. And I always like to, I led with this one during Dungeon Denizens because it's really cool, mostly because we had like 20 something people working on Dungeon Denizens. So not nearly as large a group. This is the 5e side of the house here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 authors, and then I threw myself on there because I just wanted my name on one of these charts. So I'm the one that I designed the bonus trap that everybody's getting. So I didn't actually convert one of the traps. So we basically had 10 people. So anything jump out, as you can see, for the most part, everybody did about the same number of
Yeah.
traps, and it was right around 16. That was kind of by design, when
Hmm.
we were dividing them all up. But a couple of folks had some restricted schedules, so they wanted less traps. And then there was a couple of carryovers where we need to get it. So outside of you being represented in brown there, any comments
Is that
from
me, the little brown slice?
you're not the little brown size. You're the six. You did 16.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a healthy brown. All right, that's nice. It looks like a very equatable pizza there. I
it
think
does. It does. Yeah.
I like the fact that we've got such a healthy mix of designers in here. And
Mhm.
since I pretty much know all these designers, we got really good folks in here designing these people, these
Yeah.
these traps folks. So it's nice. It's a nice equal distribution, which is cool. I like
Yeah.
having a mix of voices in a product, especially a product like this where you don't have to worry about an overall narrative, where you can kind of, have each voice speak to a different trap in that way. So I honestly didn't even realize we had this many contributors in this product. So when I actually see it laying
Yeah.
out like this myself, even it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
simple math. 150 traps.
yeah,
If you want,
a lot of
15 traps a
traps.
person, that's 10
Yeah.
people. So interesting too. So Ben Hayward on here, he's actually our one of our editors. He's
Hmm.
actually kind of the wrangler, the trap wrangler for this project.
Yeah.
He was the monster wrangler for Dungeon Denizens. And so he actually put together some of these charts. And he certainly crunched a lot of the data. So he's a big fan of spreadsheets like myself. So he got to do he wanted to do a bunch of traps too. So he got a solid dozen in there. And he said most of the other folks got a couple folks. I think that was Scott. Scott Moore was actually working on Caverns of Thracia at the time. And he wanted to be part of the project, but he was like, I really don't have a whole lot of time. So we just threw him 5 traps just to basically make sure he got an opportunity to participate and all that. And that
Hmm.
ended up that was a good amount for him, so he could keep working on some other projects we have. But yeah, this was fun. This was exciting to kind of dole these all out and everything. And I was the
Hmm.
one that actually had to assign all the traps and everything. So we tried to split them up by type and complexity and that. And so
Hmm.
we'll kind of get to those next. So we're going to pull up the next chart, which is number 5. This is traps by style.
Okay.
And you're probably going to ask, well, what the heck is style? So, and I'm here to tell you that. So in 5e, traps they come in 2 flavors, actually. They
Mhm.
come in simple traps and complex traps. Um, they also sort of come in item traps. We kind of created item as our own category for this because there were literally some traps that are kind of like a cursed item, basically, that
Mhm.
don't really fit complex or simple. They would probably end up simple, but
Yeah.
simple traps are just like we say. It's a kind of a one-trick pony. It's like you open up the chest, it explodes, and it's done. Complex traps are really like an entire encounter. There's
Yeah.
usually several steps to it. There's usually an initiative roll, at least one initiative roll for the actual trap. So basically, there's a lot more interactivity in it. and generally it's just a lot more complex, and there's a lot more going on in the trap. So I equate these to a simple trap is something that's in an encounter that literally is just there's a the door just does something or whatever. Complex trap is really an entire encounter.
Yeah, for
And on
sure.
the 5e side, we actually gave experience points for overcoming
Hmm.
these traps or falling victim to these traps. So a complex trap would give you basically experience like you were overcoming an encounter of that
Hmm.
of that equivalent CR. So simple traps you obviously get a little bit less, and then items are literally like I said, those things, everything. So
Hmm.
it's interesting. I was always telling people when people were asking me, it was an early question we got: how many simple traps versus
Hmm.
complex traps in the book? I always said about 75% simple, 25% complex, without looking at the chart or anything. Apparently, I was pretty close. So from what I can understand, I was a little bit high with that 75%, but we're probably right in there. So any comments from you?
Yeah,
That
that's a
not a
good.
very interesting graph. So
No, but we have a good, healthy amount of complex traps, and like you said, I view complex traps as a whole encounter because
yeah,
they're multi-layered. Some of them are very deadly. At least, I worked on several other complex traps, and they're harder to run. They're harder to design, certainly. So they take more time at the table, and they're really something where the players have to think about what they're doing at sometimes at multiple stages of the trap. It's not just the trap door opens and you fall. What do? It might actually, incur multiple saves or multiple actions. So there's a lot going on with those. So it's really, I love seeing the complex traps realized, especially for a book like this, to have those stats, because that's not something the average DM can just whip out of their pocket. So it's really good.
yes, agreed, 100%. And great news, we have just eclipsed 3,100 backers. So we
Oh,
are at
nice.
3,101 backers, which is awesome to hit at 3,100. So we are closing in very quickly on being the fourth most backed
Wow,
crowdfunding.
nice.
I gotta not say Kickstarter
Yeah, you
by the
can't say
Goodman name.
crowdfunding. We gotta say crowdfunding.
Yes, I know. It's so hard. It's
It
so hard. It's like
is.
Jello and Band-Aid and
And
Kleenex.
Kleenex, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's all the classics. It's just
Yeah.
weird that Kickstarter's only been around for like I guess like 15 years maybe or
Yeah.
something like that, maybe a little bit more. But like for it to be so that common
Sure.
in the lexicon and it's like,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, it's crazy. So all right, so we are moving right along
All
to
right.
our next chart. And you're gonna see they're gonna start to get a little bit interesting here. So this is traps by style, once again, simple, complex, and item. But also we're including variants on here now, and you're probably asking, what the heck are variants? So when we tasked all of our writers to write their traps, to convert their traps to 5e rules, one of the things that I wanted is I wanted them to basically write up a variant of the trap. It could be more deadly, it could be less deadly.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it was actually prompted in the text in the original Grimtooth trap. There would
Yep.
be like, here's a pit, da da da, you fall in it. Oh, and if you put like snakes at the bottom of the pit, it'd be even worse. So a lot of it, the writers just took the cues right from good old Grimtooth himself,
Hmm.
and added that to their variant. They would basically it would change up the threat, the lethality of the trap one way or the other. So
Hmm.
so basically, I look at it as like you're getting 150 traps, but you're actually probably getting 300 traps because there's a variant on each
Yeah.
trap. And some of the variants are wildly different.
Hmm.
So basically, this is just a breakdown of the simple, complex, and item traps, and then what the variants. And as you can see, it's basically almost exactly a one for one.
Yeah.
Where if it was a simple trap originally, it's now still a simple trap with a variant. But there was a couple that I think navigated over to complex traps.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so not a whole lot to say on this chart. But got anything to chime in on there? Or?
That no, except that that was kind of one of the more fun parts for me as an author,
Yeah.
especially when I had an easier trap and I had the potential to lethal it up a bit.
Yes.
Um, I had one trap, I cannot remember the name of it, where it was sort of like an endless falling trap. The characters would fall, teleport. And I remember one of the things I did with that is I added rubble into the mix, where on the
Nice.
harder version, boulders or rubble chunks, would basically chunks of stone would kind of teleport in and start falling along with the characters in that sort of feedback loop. And I just remember having a whole lot of fun with that. I was just kind of like chuckling as I wrote that. So yeah, it adds
Nice.
a whole lot of utility to the book. The fact that a lot of these traps have kind of almost like multiple skull levels now. So it's
Yes. Oh, and we're gonna get to that. We have charts for all
oh,
this, so
cool,
we're gonna get
great.
to it. We're gonna get to it.
Woohoo. I love
And
those
Dirty
skull
Dwarf,
levels.
thank you. Dirty Dwarf says your promise of delicious PC death convinced me. Ha ha ha. So it sounds like we got it back, or yay, our
Uh,
show has been successful.
See, we pulled them
So
in. We pulled them in.
yes, we pulled them in. Like, all right. So now we're going to talk about it. So the original Traps books didn't have any stats. They were system neutral. So
Hmm.
this is the first time the stats, technically not. I do believe one of the Traps books actually did provide some stats, I think, at one point in the appendix of the book. But this is the first time that there is stats for 5e and DCC versions, two different books. So pick the flavor that is your favorite game system. But the original books, the way they kind of showed off the lethality of the traps is there was a very simple 1 to 5 skull rating. Actually,
Hmm.
6 skulls actually came in one of the later books. I think book 6,
Jeez.
ironically. But yeah, so if you had a trap that was a skull 1 trap, it probably was a nuisance. Probably didn't really damage you that much. But if you had a trap that was 5 skulls, yeah, we're talking either TPK
Oh
or
yeah.
dismemberment or worse and everything. So the next chart that I would like to share with you, this is the traps by skull rating that we ended up converting. And I even took little pictures of the skulls from the original book and put them in there. So as you can see, we have a really nice, this is almost a perfect
Authentic
bell curve.
skulls, folks.
Yeah, yeah, almost a perfect bell curve. As if you were to
Yeah.
pile all the skulls up, this is the bell curve you'd get. So, and the number hanging out over the bar is the actual number of them. So you can see right in the middle, 3 skull traps. We have
Hmm.
50 of them. 4 skull traps, 43. If you go to the 2 skull traps, we go down to 28. And then on the one side, the nuisance side, 15. And then on the 5 skull side, we have 8, which is
Mm.
pretty awesome. So those are pretty deadly traps. And
Yeah.
again, they didn't give out the skull ratings of a 5 like willy-nilly. It was actually
Oh yeah,
pretty
no,
pretty
they
secure.
are even the fours are there's actually more fours, I think, and less 2 skull traps than I would expect. But that is a nice round bell curve. Grimtooth likes a nice rounded skull pile, so
Yeah,
that's a nice bell curve there.
nice. Yeah, I think so. I really nice. And then like I said, we couldn't leave good enough alone. So we have this. So we're moving on to the next one here. I'm supposed to be prompting Elena. She's probably keeping up because she's just that good. So this is chart number 8, traps by skull rating with variants.
Ah.
Because again, and this time, so you saw those numbers originally. So, and I actually put the numbers up above of how many you're getting. So as you can see, not too many people went lower with the skull ratings. Lots of people went higher with the skull ratings, and
Mhm.
you that would make sense. That would totally make sense. We I think had a lot of skull 1 and 2 traps going up to 3s and 4s and everything. Oh cool. We've got a whole bunch. I first heard about Grimtooth Risk Campaign. No idea. Yes, it was not a TSR product. It was actually a Flying Buffalo
Flying
product.
Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, which was another actually they had the second role-playing game, which was blanking on the name right now, Tunnels and Trolls.
Tunnels and Trolls, yeah.
That was the official second one. I think it came out in the 70s. And they're also well known for the Nuclear War board game, which is just
Yes.
a classic
Remember
party
that?
crush
That was
board
sort
game.
of
Oh
infamous.
yeah,
And
I love that game. I
back in
love that
those
game.
days, I know I associated them very heavily with play by mail gaming too,
And
because
they were huge on that.
they were
Yeah.
big in that area. So I
Yep.
remember this. I remember the first Grimtooth book sort of catching me off guard because I was like, I didn't know they made this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice. So as you can see, we added 16 more Skull 5 traps to the book, which is awesome through the variants. 31 more Skull 4 traps. So you're right
Wow.
there. That's
Yeah.
almost 50 more traps that are just over the top
Whew.
lethal. And then another 52 Skull 3 traps. So yeah, so we didn't tell the authors how to do it up or down, but I think there was a lot of clear most of the time when they did it most of the time it raised the lethality up. But I think it was kind of neat too. Sometimes I told them, hey, it's like it's not a bad thing to take a skull 5 trap and make it a skull
Mhm.
3 trap because sometimes the skull 5 traps were just too over the top, and you're like, we want these traps to get to the table. That's our
Yeah.
ultimate goal here. Is we want to create products that people actually use. I mean, the original traps books. I'm sure some people use them, but for the most part, like we were talking to Steve Crompton, a lot of times the game masters would just buy those trap books and leave them sitting next to their GM screen and never use them. But when the players saw them, it was like it did everything that you needed it
Hmm.
to do, and it was like it was just a deterrent, like without a problem there. So,
There
but
you
we
go.
actually want people to actually play with these
Yeah,
things. So, so yep. So that's traps by skull rating with all of the variants.
nice.
Our next chart is going to be traps by tier and threat. So now we're getting into some of the real nitty gritty
Yeah.
of 5e rules here. So this is chart number 9. So you have 4 tiers of play in Dungeons and Dragons. You've got tier 1, which is levels 1 through 4, tier 2, which is 5 through 10, tier 3, which is 11 through 16. I think I'm getting this right, and tier 4, which is 17 to 20. And then you break it down further. Traps in general in 5e have 5 different lethalities, I guess you would say. Moderate, which we named moderate, it's really called setback,
Hmm.
which is really kind of a nuisance. Like it's not going to
Yeah.
threaten. It's going to basically, it might damage your characters a little bit, but that's probably it. If anything, it might hurt their pride more. A dangerous trap, which has the possibility to knock off a character or do some serious damage, where they're going to have to expend some resources to cure maybe poison or something, or get some other condition. And then deadly traps, which is going to be, chance to kill one or more characters of that level. So as you can see, the dark red are the deadly traps, and these are all the original traps. By the way, these are the original 144 that we did. We're not talking variants here. So you can see there is a pretty sizable chunk
Oh
of
yeah.
deadly traps that are
Hmm.
in this book, and deadly for a variety of different character levels. So which is something that we definitely strived for, because a lot of people play probably 10th level or lower.
Hmm.
So you're probably going to be looking at your tier 1 and your tier 2 there. And then the pinkish, or the different color, is the dangerous traps, and then the moderate ones, or the nuisance ones, are that little blue sliver all the way at the end. So does anything jump out to you on this chart, Rick?
Just a whole lot of lethality there. Though again, it makes sense to me. I think one of the interesting things as an author on this project, for me at least, coming from the 5e side, was aligning that tier versus the skull system and how they
Mhm.
kind of match up or don't match up, because I think what's kind of middle of the road for tiers or for 5e trap levels doesn't, might be more dangerous when you get into like mid skull levels in these original books. So it's kind of interesting seeing how it makes sense to me how this kind of shook out. Um,
Nice. Yeah.
I kind of expecting those healthy red bar, dark blood red bars on that left side. you know?
And I was surprised, but maybe I shouldn't have been, that there were no moderates on tier 4. But think
Hmm.
about that, 17th level characters. Those are the traps you really have to ramp it up, and it's pretty much all or nothing as far as killing. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of hard to embarrass, 17th level character. But now it makes me want to create a trap.
Hmm.
That's clearly a tier 4 trap. That's only a moderate threat. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited about that challenge. I'm like, think there needs to be something that we
That's
can
right. You
do.
got to keep those heroes humble. I'm sure Grimtooth would agree.
Oh, I know he would agree. He would agree 100% with that. So, I totally agree with that. All right. So we are going to move along here to our next chart. This is going to be number 10. And this is tier and threat. However, this includes all the variants. This is a very, very busy chart, I will admit. The whole reason I'm putting this one in there is because it's very busy. So this
Yes.
is one of the original ones that Ben
You're
created.
betraying your scientific background here,
I
Chris.
know,
I
I
see this
know.
trap. I'm
Basically,
like, I'm deciphering this trap as I'm looking at it.
yes, yes. I'm still. This is one of these. This is one of the ones in here that you could spend a lot of
Data.
time actually trying to parse this one apart as far as what's actually going on. So
Yeah.
this has got the original traps, and it's by the 3 different threat levels: deadly, dangerous, moderate. But then it's also got the variant traps: variant deadly, variant dangerous, variant moderate. So basically you're seeing, the first 3-ish bars, I think, are the originals, and then the other 3 bars are the second 3 bars are
Mhm.
the variants and everything. So you can see, so obviously, tier 2 dominates it, and that makes sense. Levels 5 through 10
Yep.
You know, that's probably the sweet spot as far
Yeah.
as people, you know, playing fifth edition these days. So no
Hmm.
surprise there. Little bit surprised how many tier three traps we ended up with the variants
Hmm.
and everything. And I guess I would have thought maybe tier three would have been a little lower, tier one would
Hmm.
have been a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I think that probably just goes back to, I remember when we were explaining the traps to the team when they were getting ready to design. I don't know if you remember this, Rick, or not,
Hmm.
but I basically said, you know, a skull one or a skull two trap is probably a tier one trap, and then a
Yeah.
skull, you know, three trap is probably tier two, a skull four trap is probably tier three, and then a skull five trap is probably tier four. And I said it's loose, it's you got some
Hmm.
play there, you can up or down and everything, but that was kind of the guidelines I set out. So based on that, it sort of makes sense that we ended up with what we kind of ended up with, because
Yeah.
there are not a ton of traps in those books that are skull ratings one and two.
Right.
Definitely more, you know, threes, fours, and fives. So
Yeah. And we're following up on the last display here in the same way, in that we're seeing a good heavy, deadly, and variant deadly, I think, proportion,
yes.
which is interesting to me. It must be human nature as an author. I guess if you have a pit and you have a choice of adding spikes to the bottom of it or whipped cream, you're going to go with those spikes every time. So
Yeah, unless the whipped cream is sentient, and
that's
or
right.
can suffocate you
That's
or
right.
has acidic properties or something
Yes.
like that.
If a whole
Um,
bunch of eyes open up in the whipped cream, then you're talking.
yeah,
But
then you know you're or it's hiding something or put some
yeah.
kind of creature in there. So I agree with that. See, now I want to do that trap actually. Yeah, there's actually oh, this is a funny story, total sidebar on this one. So we are actually playtesting playtesting Terry Olson's DCC trap funnel. So basically he's doing a funnel, but it's like it's almost all traps basically. So you have to
Nice.
escape this trap dungeon with your zero level farmers and everything. So we were playtesting it, and it was a blast, folks. For those of you back in on the DCC side, you got to grab this module, because if you know anything about Terry Olson and the way he creates the tournaments and everything, layers and layers to his things. There's always a way to get around the trap and everything. But it was awesome where there was a trap staircase, and one of the players just said jokingly, "Oh, that this staircase is hysterical." And I heard that hysterical, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I want to create that trap, the hysterical trap." Whereas you're going up the trap, like actually you release like Tasha's hideous laughter, and then you're
Nice.
laughing so hard, then the actual staircase starts bucking around and you fall down the stairs, and then there's like spikes at the bottom or something. And I'm just like, that is like
Love it.
so
Love it.
Grimtooth right there.
Oh
So
yeah.
if I get a chance to create another trap for this book, the hysterical trap is coming. So warning your players right now. So
Nice.
okay. So yeah, so outside of this trap looking like you know, Snuffleupagus threw up, I don't know what else we can say about the ugliness of this, except for also some of my spellings were wrong on the side there, but we'll get over that real quick. So okay, we just got a couple more charts to go here. So the next one is number 11. And this is also kind of not a particular, this is we're back to kind of pie charts here a little bit. So this is a breakdown of the item traps. So again, items are a certain type of trap, and in 5e, items are generally kind of like magic items for the most part, and they have different rarities starting at common, uncommon, rare, very rare, and legendary. So the writers use that when they actually designed their item traps. They actually assigned a rarity to them, because that, you know, it fits in very nicely. So as you can see here, legendary, there's only one, and that
Mhm.
probably makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Most of them, about almost half of them, were uncommon.
Mhm.
We did have a couple of commons. Common was not in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I believe Common was a rarity. I think it was introduced in Tasha's book, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not
Okay.
too surprised that we didn't get too many there.
Yeah,
And
that
then a couple
explains
of,
why that's so
yeah,
small.
then we had, you know, a good number of rares and then some very rares. So I don't think there's anything particularly surprising by this one. It was just something. This was another chart that actually already kind of built itself through
Mhm.
our data. So we just kind of went with it. It was a couple clicks and boom, it was a pie. And not sure there's too much else to actually
Yeah, that
talk
looks like a sensible breakdown. I would,
Yeah.
I guess, again, I might expect common to be a little bigger, but given what you said about the whole, when that was introduced, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, okay, we only have one more chart to go. Hopefully you guys are having fun. Before we get to that last chart, I just want to check to see where we're at in the campaign because it's been awesome. We are at 3,106 backers. We've gained, I think, over 100 backers in the last probably hour and a half, probably, which is
We,
amazing. And we are at over $177,000. We are less than $3,000 away from the next stretch goal, which is
ooh,
yet another trap by Steve Crumpton, and that trap is called "I Go Weak in the Knees," which is awesome, and he's got some really cool puns in there. So really loving that. So thank you to everybody who's already backed. If you guys are still on the fence, you've got 46 hours to go. And be sure to check us out on Tuesday when
oh
we
yeah.
have our wrap party. It will be a ton of fun. And like I said, we might have some really cool announcements on some stuff. So, and I see that Elena has thrown in there the link to go right to it. So no excuses. So without further
The
ado, let's go to the last chart. And I have to admit, this is
most
totally
important.
silly. The most important chart. So these are, after we pulled these 144 traps, we made sure Grimtooth was aware of which ones we did, and then we're like,
Mhm.
well, are these good? Are they not good? And I can happily report that Grimtooth says all of these traps are certified lethal, deadly, and guaranteed to be amazing to inflict on your player characters, especially the snide ones that have something coming to them. So definitely pick this book up if you
There
get a
you go.
chance.
Better
And
than the good housekeeping seal of approval.
yes, without a doubt, that would be well, I guess the skull rating is probably like the
Yeah.
seal of approval, sort of. I guess I approve skull. Um, but yeah, so definitely check it out. We got a lot of cool things going on. The poll is still open. I'm not sure if we're going to cram another poll in there during the last couple of days of the campaign. But certainly check it out. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find us. You can find us on our on our website. You can join us on our next stream for this, and we can answer any questions. We have an hour to kill for that wrap up show. So just exciting. This has been a fun project to kind of follow along. It's always a bit of anxiety when you do crowdfunding because you never know what you're going to get. But I think 3,106 people have responded that they want more traps in their games. So we're pleased. So with that,
Nice.
any final words? I mean, no scores on the football game. There's nobody watching the football game but
Yeah,
me,
see, we've
except for
got
me.
them immersed in trapland here. They just can't
Wow.
even think about football. So,
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with people. All right. What do you got to tell folks, Rick? Anything or no?
no, we're just down to the 40 last, what is it? Last 46
46
hours.
hours. 46
So
hours.
if you're on the fence, folks, take the plunge. It's a terrific book. And I don't just say that because I contributed some deadly traps. It really is a fun, good book. And we tried to inject a lot of utility and usability into here. I really think this is a book that really can see a lot of use at the table, and the
Yes.
stats are all incorporated, so the work is done for you in this case. So a lot of the heavy lifting that was present in the original, we've taken care of that for you here. So it's really a great book, and I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. I am as well. So again, we thank everybody for sitting, hanging out with us on a Sunday night when
Yeah.
there's awesome football games going on and people are hopefully not in their turkey comas anymore. Hopefully everybody had a great and a safe holiday and everything. And again, check us out at PAX if you guys are in the Philly area. If you've never been to PAX Unplugged before, you got to check it out for a day. It's got a massive dealers hall like no other. It's not as big as Gen Con, but it's probably bigger than Origins. So it's great to see all the different companies and everything. If you're in the area, check it out for a day. I'll give you a insider tip. Sunday is definitely not as busy as Friday or Saturday. So if you're thinking about coming for just one day and you just want to, you could easily spend the day just walking up and down the dealer's hall. There's enough to do and there's demos going on and everything. So check us out at PAX Unplugged. And check us out in 2 days when we wrap up the crowdfunding for
Yeah.
this and put a bow on this project. And it's probably a bow laced with poison and razor blades and all kinds of good stuff. So everybody have a great night. Be safe, except for your PCs when they're wandering down the corridor.
Yes.
Um, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Have a good one.